Bladensburg and Springbrook questions throughout this show today. So we're going to keep it moving. The coaches have prepared their pregame speeches, and we're ready to jump off. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so our first question is going to come from your rival, Coach Desmond Wade from Blake High School.
Coach C, how you doing, man?
I'm great, Wade. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us. So we'll get right into it. And just tell the people about yourself. Who is Coach T? How'd you get into coaching, or you're playing back home? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So this is year 10 coaching. I'm originally from Missouri. My parents immigrated from East Africa, from Eritrea, and so grew up in Missouri, played ball there, went to college in Chicago, went to University of Chicago, played 2 years there, and then switched over to coaching kind of when I was playing ball in college. And so I think my very first year I coached girls for 1 year, and then just switched over to the boys side and haven't looked back.
Oh, so you coach girls for 1 year?
1 year. I did an assistant coaching job 1 year at a Catholic school on the south side in Chicago. And it was cool. It was great. And I just knew, like, playing girls basketball, like, my whole life, that was just something I'd grown accustomed to and I was, like, used to. And so I kind of wanted a bit more of a challenge and something different. And I didn't grow up with any brothers, so I didn't have, like, the boys basketball experience. So I was like, all right, there's something new. So.
All right, sounds good. Glad to hear about your story a little bit. I'm gonna pass it over to Coach John Kamar from Parkdale High School.
Hey, Coach C, nice to meet you.
Wait, I can't hear him. Where'd he go? All right, there he is.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. So my question to you is, so can you elaborate on how, like, the more of the story of how you started coaching boys, and then, like, moving forward to how did you start coaching Springbrook boys?
Yeah. So when I first started coaching at the Catholic school, I coached under this guy named Lex, and so when I was coaching with him with the girls, after that season, he was like, well, our boys team, like, they're not very good, but they need a coach. And so would that be something you're interested in doing? And obviously it was something different. It was a challenge. So I did middle school boys for a couple of years, and then I switched over to high school boys. So I'm a teacher also. So I teach bio at Springbrook right now, but I started teaching right after I got my master's in Chicago, and I was at a school where it was like 6 through 12. So I would teach in the middle school, and then I go upstairs and coach in the high school. So I got with one of the math teachers in the high school who was trying to, like, rebuild a high school program. He, we hooped a couple of times, and he was looking for somebody to help him out. And so he basically put me on, did JV for a year, and then just jumped up to his assistant. And then my last year in Chicago, I was there for 4 years teaching. I took over for him because he ended up leaving, going to a different school and teaching at a different school. So I took over the head varsity coach job at our school in Chicago, had a great season. And then right at the end of the season, like our last day of, like, playoffs, my husband came home and he was like, I got a job offer at Georgetown. And so we discussed it, and then we're like, all right, we got to move. And so we moved out here. And basically, once I got out here, I considered taking a year off from coaching, just to kind of figure out what MCPS is like. And then I decided I couldn't take a year off. I didn't want to do that. So at that point, I just kind of looked up a whole bunch of schools in MCPS, try to figure out, like, what different programs are about, and just started reaching out to coaches. So I reached out to about, like, 3 schools that I thought were pretty interesting, and Coach D responded, like, almost instantly, and we met up. We talked for a little while, and then he just brought me on board. So my first year with him, this is my 3rd year at Springbrook coaching. And so I was his assistant for 1 year. Then I took over the JV program last year. It was my 2nd year with the JV program.
Definitely. Definitely appreciate your response. For the people, a lot of people don't realize how, teaching, gives you that outlet to coach, especially when you have that basketball background. There's limited amount of people that have a basketball background that ends up being in the educational field. So when that connection ties, so, you know, it's kind of like a easier transition into coaching when you have that balance, teaching and having that athletic background. So
Definitely.
Definitely appreciate your response. So I'm gonna pass it to Coach Tobias Jennifer at Huntington High School.
How you doing, Coach?
Hey, how are you?
Not too bad. It's a pleasure having you on the show today. I told some of my friends that I went to college with that we're interviewing one of the coaches from Springbrook, and actually one of them knew who you were. I think both of them knew who you were, and one of them said he coached against you in a JV summer league. I think you were just talking about it. So,
okay, yeah.
It's a small world. So my question to you, you know, I've been sitting back listening, and I've heard some really good things. So this is a little bit of a tough question. What is one of the big challenges you've endured coaching young men? And then on the flip, then my second question would be, are there any advantages a woman may have coaching young men over a male?
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest obstacle that I've encountered has just been trying to figure out a way to get respect from referees. That's like the hill I'm gonna die on, I swear. It's every game, every day is something different. Like the number of stories I've like racked up over these years has kind of been crazy. So, you know, I've been confused from everything from like the trainer to just kind of like a random person that's on the bench to, you know, double checking, asking twice, like, are you sure you're the coach? And it's like, yeah, like I'm sitting here in the coach's chair, dressed up, ready to go. And then, you know, I think they just don't know what to expect. So I've definitely gotten a lot of situations where I've been like really close to getting a technical, and try to stay away from that. It's almost as if I feel like they don't understand what I understand about basketball. So, you know, I don't have as much bass in my voice. So I try to yell. I mean, Wade saw me this year. I'll stomp the heel of my boot to try to get the ref's attention. And it's always pegged as I'm doing something completely different. I'll have like opposing coaches like cursing at the refs, yelling, like really getting in them. And I'm like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? They're like, coach, I'm gonna give you a tea if you don't sit down. It's like, what? I just asked a question. So I definitely think that is the biggest obstacle. So I'm still trying to figure it out, but hopefully with like a couple more years in the same league, trying, you know, having the same refs, there will be some kind of like relationship built there. But that's definitely been the hardest thing. So your second question, I'd say obviously I don't know what it's like to be a man coaching boys basketball, but I know that for me, the hardest thing has never been getting respect from the guys or, you know, figuring out, you know, if they're going to respond to me or whatnot. I think like after kind of like brief introductions, like I usually play with the guys that I coach, you know, I definitely challenge them to shooting contests and beat all of them. But I think that the benefit that I've seen, and I definitely saw this past year too, is a lot of the guys I've always coached just kind of have their moms in the house and may not have a lot of male figures in their life. And so like, in a way, it's easy for them to relate to me because they're like, well, you're like our basketball mom. Like we got our mom at home and then like you're our mom here essentially. And so, you know, some people might take that as like an insult or whatnot. I think it's like a form of respect. Like they definitely understand kind of where I'm coming from. And so I think that is an advantage. I also think just like I said, like the last question, me being a teacher, being in the same school, them being in my classroom, like they see kind of all sides of me. So yeah, it's been good.
I appreciate that answer. I think just from the things that Coach Wade has said about you, I think you're doing a tremendous job. You know, I think you've also done a great job of you kind of killing them with kindness, you know, standing there, you know, just kind of doing what you do, not diverting from anything different. And, you know, I would agree that being in that conference for the next couple of years, those referees and those coaches, they'll come around. You know, once they continue to see that familiar face, there was a girls coach and on one of the teams in the conference that we played this year. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought the same thing. I thought it was a trainer. So that ended up her. And then after the game, I honestly went over to her and I said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I got just as much respect for you as I do any other coach." So I greatly appreciate you being on the show today. I appreciate your answer, and I'm gonna pass it over to Coach Will Maynard from Southern High School.
Good afternoon, Coach.
Hey, how are you?
So looking forward to just hearing more about you, and I've seen Springbrook play a couple times, and you guys do a great job over there. You guys have a great program. I mean, your coach, real good dude. I've talked to him a few times at the Kennedy League. Real good dude.
Thank you.
So my question to you is, what's the biggest misconception about coaching, about being a woman coaching boys basketball?
I honestly think that it just comes down to I just don't know as much. I think that's just kind of like the assumption that's made off the top is just like, you're a girl, you don't really know what you're talking about. And it's just like, I play basketball. The rules for basketball are the same boys and girls. Like, there might be minor adjustments when you get to the NCAA level, but like I grew up playing, I've been coaching for a long time, but like that is definitely the biggest thing. And I think like, if I bring it back to kind of like my personal life, my husband's friends, they're kind of all from this area. And so they play ball with me. Like we've chopped it up. We'll like have like watch parties for the finals and playoffs and whatnot. And so through that experience, I think once people start talking to me and kind of see where my mind is at and how I break down the game and how I understand the game, those misconceptions like slowly start to go away. But that's definitely like the first thing is like, you're a girl, you don't know what you're talking about. And then it's like, I got to prove myself. I got to talk about what I'm doing. I got to show you the work that I'm doing. And it's like, oh, you might. And so that's just kind of been the thing. I think this year with a lot of the coaches that I ran into, it was pretty evident by the end of the game. Like we had a really great season. We won a lot of our games. A lot of our games are blowouts. And so I think that's just kind of the way that try to send a message is like, it's not that you're getting beat by a girl. It's like you're getting destroyed by a girl's team. And I just like to put that stamp at the end of the game.
So pretty much you're telling us that Springbrook is going to be good for the next few years.
Oh yeah, no hesitation. I don't even know who we're going to get in the next couple of years, and we're going to be good.
Oh shoot! Y'all heard you hear that, Coach Small? I'm sorry, Coach Wade.
Listen, man, I understand what she says, and listen, we've been going back and forth for a while now. She didn't even know me, and she came at me. She was talking to my JV head coach. She's like, "Dang, your head coach don't even show up to do scouting. He sent you." I'm like, "No, I'm right here," and that's how we kind of met. So,
dang! Oh, I see. You ain't playing no games.
Nah. I mean, I was just happy that they were in the building. They came to check out a couple of our games on holiday tournaments, so I was just happy that they were there.
That's what happens when you guys are perennial state power. You know what I mean? I've already, even though this year, unfortunately came to an end early, but
right.
Just from people that I've talked to, your names come up as a team to beat in the 4A next year too. So you guys must return a lot, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like everything, I think Coach D and I definitely have different styles, kind of how we approach it, but we have that same like mentality. Like we want the best for our guys. We definitely work hard, and we're just grateful to be in that position, and try to get there every year.
Well, good luck to y'all, because I'm not in the 4A, so y'all can win that game every year for all I care. No offense.
I appreciate it.
Well, I'm gonna pass it along to Coach O of Blazeburg High School. Thank you.
I was wondering when y'all was gonna get off the Springbrook course, man. I was just over here like water, stay calm, coach. I'm just joking. Great insight, man. When I was previewing, looking over the questions, and I saw that question about the misconception of a young lady coaching men and all that,
yeah,
or boys, whatever. But then when you think about it, what you just said, a lot of these young men that we coach, most of them have single mothers in the home.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that relationship that you have with them is like golden, you know what I mean? Then they start to call. I tell all my parents when we have a parent meeting, a lot of our kids' parents can't come to games, but they're gonna start calling you mom. You're not even their mother. You know what I mean?
Right,
That's what these kids do, you know. So they're gonna start calling you mom. You're gonna be buying them food and you know, checking on them and making sure they safe. You can build that relationship with them. So that is definitely priceless. My question that I have for you though, about the program, being a JV coach myself, 8 years, and then I got the head coaching job my 9th or 10th year at Bladensburg. How do you go about the program? I know wins and losses, and if I'm correct, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You guys didn't lose any games this year?
Nah, we lost 3. One in the Christmas tournament.
Right,
but
so
yeah.
Successful season when it comes to W's, and I know as a JV head coach, your main objective is development. Can you go about how do you prepare your kids for the next level, which is varsity?
Yeah. So I'm really big on making sure I'm teaching them the game and not just, hey, you know, go out there, play one-on-one, take advantage of the mismatches. Obviously, there are going to be mismatches in basketball, but just kind of like the way I am and the way I am as a learner, you know, I break down film, I take notes, I have like game plans that I create and, you know, we study and we go through with and practice. But something that like this year was something new that I tried. I would always do that in my past years, but this year, you know, you get guys get to a certain point in the season, they've won a whole bunch of games, they haven't lost any games, they haven't faced real adversity. And then the minute that like that adversity slaps you in the face, it's like a wake up call, especially for 15, 16-year-old boys. And so what I decided to do was after a film session, I asked them like, hey, well, you know, what kinds of things would you like to know about other teams going into a game? And so they started running down a list. I'm at my computer in my classroom, like taking notes. They're like, yeah, we want to know like the best players, where their out of bounds play, their sideline plays, like what kind of defense. And they start going through this whole thing. And I was like, all right, so we had this really tough loss, but now what you're going to do, I basically made a template and kind of put it all into like a Google Doc and printed out copies. And that just kind of became our routine for the rest of the season was you had, you know, a day or two to watch film on, you know, our next opponent, fill out the scouting report, both pages of the scouting report. And like, you had to turn that into me by noon, lunchtime in my classroom. Or there were consequences. They didn't want to figure out what the consequences are. So they're like hunting each other down. Like, where is he at? He hasn't turned his in, like make sure everything's filled in. But by doing that and them getting in the habit of doing that, they were able to like internalize all the information about all of our opponents and really just be able to regurgitate. So when we're going through walkthroughs and practice and preparing, guys are like, no, this is what the play is. That kid's a lefty. This guy's, you know, mid-range shooter. And so I think that's something I definitely want to keep doing because I just kind of saw the benefits and the way that played out. Like even the conversations on the bench after that point, you know, really focused in on like, hey, we studied this team. We know what they're about. We had all the information. Like essentially we took a test on it and now we're here and showing up. So I just kind of want them to be a better basketball thinker. I don't want them to just rely on, you know, doing one-on-one or whatever. And so, yeah, I want to keep that up going on. Moving on.
Yes, that's absolutely. I wrote that down because, like, in the middle of the season, I try to find out different ways to get kids more engaged in the game. And what I did was I gave them all that project, you know, scout. We watch film, you scout, and each person got their own paper and pen, and we come together with a scout. And so they get a better understanding on an opponent as well because a lot of times our kids get caught up in watching the great plays instead of the scouting plays. You know what I mean? The stuff that the tendencies that you can pick up on different coaches and stuff like that. So that was actually great, man. I really appreciate your input on that one. And best of luck for you going forward. And hopefully we
appreciate that.
Hopefully we get you guys to come over to the stable. I've been hitting that on Twitter, so I'm gonna say that live. That y'all can come on over to the stable and get a game, man. Scrimmage or something.
I mean, you know, something light. You know, I liked your guys' warm-up music. It was nice. That go-go music was nice.
Yeah, that's great. As my man Ray said, we keep everything feathery. So definitely appreciate you. And I'm going to pass it over to Coach Terrell over at Howard Community College.
Coach T, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm gonna always be a fan now because I'm half Eritrean. So we gotta stick together. You know what I'm saying?
That's what's up.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, can you explain how it was to be a part of a team that made it to Xfinity Center and got to Comcast?
Yeah. It was a lot, right? I think once the JV season ended, I was able to kind of give my full attention to what Varsity was doing, right? And so, once we were over with, it was, trying to check in with Coach C a lot more, go to practices, make sure we got film on upcoming teams, because you never know who you're going to play once playoffs come around, and just kind of trying to figure out, all right, do we have info on everybody? But it was definitely intense. I think like preparing for the games, guys kind of just know like, man, this could be it. And so I was telling Wade not too long ago, like guys would just stop going home after school. Like we might have a game at like 7:30, and they're just like sitting in the classroom, just like anxiously waiting. Like one kid was just for like 3 hours was watching like Wild 'N Out videos on his phone. He's like, I gotta stay distracted, because if I keep thinking about the games, and it was, I think, what I kept trying to remind myself to do, because it's hard. Like there's a lot of noise that starts to come once you start to get closer and closer to going to the Final Four. I just wanted to take it upon myself to make sure that I was trying to like keep guys calm and, keep the environment relaxed. So if you talk to some of those guys, like they'll constantly say that during a game, I might be cracking jokes, just like throw them off and be like, look, it's basketball at the end of the day. But there definitely were a lot of nerves, making it through. Like they knew they were prepared, but, every game, you don't know what to expect. So it kind of sucks the way it ended. Like even that day when we got the email, like first it was a closed gym, and then it was, all right, no game. And this happened like seventh period, like kids from the school just running up like, how can we get in? We want to watch. And it's like, well, now there's no game. I think, it kind of bummed them out a little bit. They made it so far, and we hadn't done that, at least in the couple years that I've been there. Like something has always happened every year to like stop us from going. So it was fun. It was exciting. It was definitely, there's a lot of nerves, but it was great.
Now to kind of continue on that, how did the cancellation due to the virus affect the program and the team and everything? Like how was that mood going after you guys got the email?
Yeah, it was just kind of one of those things. Like when we got the first email about like the game day, my classroom's like in a busy hallway, and so I'm seeing a lot of guys walk past, and we're just like all giving each other the look, like, well, this sucks. Like I don't really know what to say about this, and it's like we don't want to talk about it, but we're like hoping for the best. I don't think anybody could have predicted that it would turn into what it has so far. Like I think we all kind of thought, all right, take 2 weeks off, maybe get a week of practice in and go back out there. It was tough. I think the good thing that at least our program has going for us, like we're losing a lot of like key guys, but I think we have such a deep bench, and we have a lot of guys, like a strong, like our point guards returning, our center, one of our shooting guards, like we got a lot of strong pieces that are coming back. So I hope that if anything, this is going to kind of fuel them to want to continue the story through next season. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you joining and answering my question. Now I'm going to pass it to the man, Desmond Smalls from Washington Adventist University.
Hey, how you doing, Coach? Excuse me, I'm driving, trying to stay safe at the same time. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure having you on the show. I joined a little late, but just hearing all your responses, you seem to be very educated on the game of basketball, and I can say I'm impressed just from hearing all your responses and everything like that.
I appreciate that.
So my question is, being from Missouri, moving to Chicago, and now being in the DMV, and seeing all types of styles of basketball, how would you compare like basketball here compared to what you seen in high school in your days and from Chicago to now? What would you say is some of the differences and the similarities in your experience?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like my recollection of what it was like in high school was just at our school. We were a pretty big high school, but it was definitely the attention was on the girls basketball team. Like we were pretty dominant. And had successful seasons. I don't really remember what the boys were like. I know they were bad, but they weren't like terrible. But I know like the scene was always focused on St. Louis and all the schools out there. But moving, I would say the biggest difference I see from coming from Chicago out here is, one of the first things I learned was that there's a big private school scene out here in the DMV area, and that's kind of where a lot of the attention kind of gets put. Where Chicago, we're dealing with almost 500,000 kids in CPS alone. And so, really depending on your neighborhood, you figure out what the top schools are. You hear the same like Whitney Young, whatnot, Simeon. Like there are these like 3-4 big powerhouses, and then there's like a whole bunch of like smaller bubbles of schools where, it's definitely, I would say a little bit more cutthroat in Chicago. Like there have definitely been situations where, fans, kids, parents, like there's just been a whole bunch of, back and forth. And I just think that like everyone takes it to another level in Chicago. I would say out here in Maryland, it's a little bit more suburban. So it's not that same experience of like getting your face after every shot or bucket, but I want to say it's just different. I don't even know how to put it in words in Maryland. I mean, you see that the district in and of itself, MCPS, is segregated in and of itself. And so you kind of know what you're going to get when you go into any game, really. So like we had it, like my first year, we went to, I won't even name the school. We went to one school not too far from Springbrook, and like the student section was just really aggressive. They were all wrapped in like the American flag. They were saying a whole bunch of things to our guys on the court. And it's just like, you're not going to get that experience in Chicago. Like you're not going to have that same kind of like racial tension. So I would say that, like those are the biggest differences I've seen from my time here.
Okay, so I mean, you've been here, you've been coaching in Montgomery County the whole time. Have you had an opportunity to see Prince George's County games or DC games, just going out to experience those and the WCAC games and stuff like that?
I saw I checked out Roosevelt last year. Like I was able to finally see some games last year towards the end, kind of in the playoff time. I know like a friend of a friend who coaches he coaches for Poly. I haven't, I've been able to just kind of catch their games online, haven't been able to like make it there in person. But a lot of what I've been seeing as far as like private school stuff has been more online action, but I've definitely checked out a couple of games in PG. I haven't made it to any of like the DC public school games just because of the overlap and the timing, but definitely, keeping tabs, figuring out who are the, schools to look out for and the players to look out for.
Okay, well, I appreciate your response. I mean, obviously, you're coming from a different area. So it's always good to get the perspective of fresh eyes of what they think about basketball here in Maryland. When you do get an opportunity, you should come to our games at Washington and Venice University. You can see NAI basketball, so I'll extend that invitation to you as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Problem. And I'm going to pass it to Coach Chuck Henry.
Go ahead. Wait. Coach.
Yeah.
So you've seen a lot of Montgomery County basketball. I mean, we hear a lot of stuff on a Twitter about the players and all that. But what are some notable players and or programs that you would say get overlooked in our area or conference? You can include Springbrook if you like, any players, but just in general. We've had some talk.
Yeah, no, I think that's a tough one. I think that there were some standout players. Like we talked about kind of the all-county players in the list that came out this year. I mean, obviously, I'm going to say that there's a ton of guys that, we don't hear a ton about from Springbrook. Like, I think Dowda had a great year. I think Adrian McGuffrey is going to, he's due for an amazing year next year. Just seeing kind of the work he put in. you know, somebody I told you that I was, you know, impressed by just kind of seeing him since his freshman year. Obviously, Jao at Gaithersburg, like just seeing how he's taken his game to the next level every year. You know, Blake had a great year this year. You were definitely able to turn that program around and, you know, make it really competitive with those guys. You know, I'm interested to see, you know, how you guys definitely progress. I think that there have been like players like we talked about Abel at Kennedy who had a really great year. I just think that in a way, and maybe this is just a chip on my shoulder, I think that like people expect Springbrook to kind of always be solid, but I feel like we get counted out a lot out of a lot of games. And so I'm always right for them, but I definitely think like our conference and our division, there's a lot of talent kind of squeezed into, you know, us, Paint Branch, Blake, you know, Sherwood's in there. There's a lot of good competition there that I just don't think that as a unit we get a lot of recognition for. So I think you compare our division to the other divisions in MCPS, the talent level isn't even. So I definitely think there's just a lot of scattered talent, but you know where I think the number one talent is. So.
You mean the number one talent being at Blake in Montgomery County? Nah, man. You mentioned some really good players in there, and I haven't had a chance to play against the kid Jao, but seeing him on film and seeing his progression from freshman to going into, well, now he's about to be a senior, but we kind of talked about it. He developed that jump shot, and he's a total different player. He ended up getting player of the year in Montgomery County. I saw the film of Abel dropping 54.
Right.
And he's getting a couple looks on a D1 level.
Right.
The kid Nate Lacey from Sherwood, he just signed with Washburn.
Okay.
He kind of gets overlooked, but he's just solid night in and night out.
Right.
But yeah, and we talked about the kid Ryan Prather.
Right.
He's a heck of a player too.
Right.
I just think a lot of players on this side get overlooked because of the Montgomery County, just the name they say Montgomery County, but these guys are actually playing at a very high level.
Yeah, and even Juan at Paint Branch, right? Like that, you know, for being the size he is, like he's a problem, and he's consistently a problem. And I think that he doesn't always get the love that I think he probably deserves.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the kid's been on varsity and been playing since he was a freshman, so he definitely spot on with that. So yeah, hopefully the people get out and try to make a couple of games in Montgomery County to see some of these players, because it's a lot of people, a lot of kids over here doing some work.
Definitely.
So yeah, appreciate it, and I'm going to pass you over to Coach Will from Southern High School.
Yeah, so my next question I have for you is, and I always like to, we don't always, as a panel, like to ask all of these coaches is what advice would you give a woman who's interested in coaching boys or men's basketball?
I would say, you know, the biggest thing, you know, figure out a way to get your foot in the door. I think that's just the biggest struggle in and of itself is try to find a way to get your foot in the door, whether, you know, if you're an educator, whether that means, you know, starting coaching at whatever school you teach at and building connections from there, reaching out to coaches, right? Like that's kind of what I did when I, you know, hit up a couple of schools in Montgomery County. I'm just sending them emails, like attaching my resume, like just hoping that something clicks. And I think that is the biggest thing, is just try to figure out a way to use all the resources you have available to figure out a way to get in the door. And once you're in the door, I mean, just like any other coach, I would say just don't stop working. Because I think everyone's going to kind of be like peeking over their shoulder, you know, waiting for you to mess up, seeing where you're going to mess up, how bad is that mess up going to be. And so, you know, never stop working, you know, cross your T's, dot your I's. But the biggest hurdle, in my opinion, is just trying to get in there. You know, and when I got to Montgomery County, one of the things, you know, while I started coaching at Springbrook, I was also coaching at the school I used to teach at, which is Argyle Middle School. So I was coaching the boys there and coaching at Springbrook at the same time and like running from gym to gym and practice to practice and game to game. And so just really trying to figure out ways to get your name out there, build those relationships. And so, you know, through that, I've been able to, you know, build a relationship with some of the coaches at Avalon, because I coached one of their sons at Argyle, and, you know, and building that network. And so I would just say, you know, find something, take a hold of it, and just don't let go, definitely.
Is there anything you would add to just somebody that would be interested, any woman who would like to get into the girl side? Anything else?
I think the same thing can go. Obviously, I haven't done girls in a long time, but I think that the biggest part of coaching is building relationships and figuring out, you know, how programs are historically ran, or just kind of like who are the people that you need to know. So whether that means just starting to go to games and, you know, introducing yourself to coaches afterwards, I would probably say like the same advice probably applies there as well. Is figure out where the top talent is and kind of work your way around that, and where, you know, where the top programs and coaches, and figure out a way to get yourself in there.
Thank you. That's definitely some great advice, and hopefully, you know, whoever's listening to this would listen to it and understand those relationships is a major part of everything. But in basketball, any sport, especially coaching, it's all about relationships. So, you know, I always let these young coaches know, if you come in there like a big Mr. Big Shot, and I know this, and I've done this, I've done that, you're not going to survive long in this game.
Right. Exactly.
I'm going to pass it along to Coach Tobias Jennifer.
Hey, good to hear from you again, Coach.
Me too.
So real quick, I just kind of want to backtrack slightly. I'm kind of getting off script a bit, but when you were talking about the difference between Maryland, or I guess the DMV, and Chicago, is in Chicago, and I may be wrong, that's why I'm asking, but in Chicago, is there one overall state champion?
So there's like, it's hard. So there's like a million divisions, and then there's obviously city playoffs, and there's like a city playoff champion. And then depending on where your division is, like there could be a couple of teams, like I think, you know, Simeon, Morgan Park in the past have like punch tickets to the Final Four down in Springfield for state. So we kind of have like multiple levels of, you know, championships and whatnot. But there's at least, I would say, two teams from Chicago that typically end up going to state, and usually kind of come up and are successful. So yeah. Okay,
because now I was just curious. Now, can a public school end up playing a private school in the final, or no?
No, not that I know of. I haven't heard that before.
Okay, now because I know some states are a little different where there's only one overall state champion, like in Kentucky. I didn't know if Chicago was the same. That's why I don't know much about the Chicago basketball scene, so that's why I was curious. And I didn't.
Yeah, no, they take the city championships real serious. Like we play, the game is played at Chicago State. Like you gotta buy tickets in advance. Like it's a whole thing. Like this year, it ended up aligning with All-Star Weekend stuff, and so they ended up like the Jordan brand, you know, decked out one of the armories on the south side. So it was like a whole event, but they take it serious for sure.
All right, so my question for you, I've heard a lot of great things. I actually had a chance to kind of get to know you a little bit more. Haven't met you, just heard really good things. So what are the next steps in coaching for Coach T? What's next for Coach T?
That's a good question. I think part of it is, you know, with my husband's job and just kind of where we're at, you know, I think like in my mind now, I'm always like, all right, you know, if we ever have to pick up and move, figuring out what that looks like. I still want to keep coaching. I still want to stay at Springbrook. This is my first year teaching there. You know, I really loved having the experience of just being in the same building with my guys, you know, having my classroom as a kind of like a home base. But obviously I want to get back to where I left off in Chicago and get back to a head coaching job for varsity team. And so I felt like I had just got something started. And so I obviously want to get back to that point. You know, wherever that may take me. I don't, you know, now I live in DC where I was living in Maryland at first. And so I don't know if that means I'll move to, you know, DC public schools and, you know, keep teaching here. But whatever I decide to do, I definitely want to keep teaching and coaching. And I want those to be in the same place. Like I want there to be one home. After doing the Argyle, Springbrook split and running back and forth. Like, that was a very tiring year that I never want to do again. So yeah, I mean, I just take it day by day, but that's definitely the goal.
Yeah, that sounds good. I definitely, me being a teacher as well, along with a couple other guys who are in this on the panel, it definitely makes a big difference being in it with your kids, and then it follows back to your last question with relationships and building those relationships. Yeah. I think that's something that every coach should make sure they nail down. I know a lot of coaches are tough on their kids, and I don't want to show any type of emotion. I don't want to seem like a friend or anything like that. But building those relationships with those kids, I'm telling you, they'll run through those walls for you. And like a lot of what you're doing up at Springbrook, no matter the gender, you're doing a great job. And hopefully it doesn't stop here. Hopefully, at some point at a coach's clinic or something, we can all get together and kind of sit down and talk X's and O's. But it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'm going to pass it over to Coach O for any type of closing remarks.
It sounds like we about to go to church. Closing remarks. Coach, we want to say thank you, man. So normally about this time, we switch gears just a little bit.
Okay.
And that's right. Get situated because it's about it.
Okay.
So now I just want to ask a couple questions before I ask this next question. So you grew up in Chicago, born and raised?
No. I grew up in Missouri, born and raised in Missouri.
Okay, so
I spent 10 years in Chicago.
All right. So normally what we do, we've been had a lot of DMV guests on, so it's been kind of like we already knew is the names that people is going to say.
Yeah.
Being from Missouri, the show me state, can you give me your top 5 Missouri basketball players?
Oh yeah. Like currently in the league or just like of all time?
Because some guys, people don't know it was a guy better than Michael Jordan that didn't get a chance to make it to the league. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes those guys that's at home, that the woulda, coulda, shouldas that was good and got caught up in the mess.
Yeah, well, so, obviously I would go kind of like right in the league. I tell everybody that, the Wizards had a couple good pieces. Obviously Bradley Beal's from St. Louis. Jason Tatum is from that area. Otto Porter from St. Louis as well. I think those guys definitely stick out for sure. Who else? I always have this conversation, this argument with people from here, like especially guys that like the Wizards, like we made your team, Missouri talent. But definitely, I got to throw. I'm not a boys basketball player, but one of my best friends I grew up playing with in Missouri. She's not from Missouri, but she, had her high school career. Yvonne Anderson. She played at Texas. She's been playing overseas since we graduated college. Her dad is Coach Anderson at St. John's, so she'll give anybody a bucket. So I'm gonna put her on there, even though she's not from Missouri per se, but she definitely rounds that list out. I would also go. Not a lot of people know Maya Moore is from Missouri, so she grew up she had her formative years probably in Georgia, but she's from Missouri. I had that experience of having to be on the other end of that as a small child. So those definitely would be my 5 for sure.
It's top 5.
Yeah, that's a
good mix.
So now I'm gonna switch it just a little bit more.
Okay.
So Barry from the Lou, from St. Louis, Missouri. Who do you select? Chingy or Nelly?
My husband loves this. I love Nelly, right? I met Chingy. Chingy and Murphy Lee in high school, so they're dear to my heart. But I love Nelly, so definitely him.
That's a good selection. I spent a little bit of time in the Midwest, early teen years with my aunt. She was from Park Forest, Illinois.
Okay.
I definitely understand, and she taught in Chicago as well at Simeon. But I definitely understand about that Midwest vibe, and I still believe that North Carolina has the best barbecue.
Some might say Kansas City.
So you just keep it there. Now, my next thing, since you got that out the way, now the floor is yours. If there are any questions that you want to ask of the panel, or anything that you want to tell the people more that we didn't cover about Coach T?
Ooh.
Anything?
Oh yeah, I guess, with something I've realized, or, and maybe I'm wrong and I kind of want to get your guys' input on this, moving out, to the DMV area, there seems to be more of a heavy relationship between high school coach and AAU coach. And I know that, like, personally, I not the most interested in being an AAU coach for a lot of different reasons, not knocking it, but just like, one of the biggest things being, I want my summers for me after teaching all year. But do you all coach AAU, and like, what's your experience with that relationship?
I'll go first since the mic is open. Yes, I did. I was just like you. I wanted to have my summers, but then I started realizing that AAU to me was a breath of fresh air. It was a time to actually coach. Where high school season is really long. It's great. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy what I do. But to be along other coaches as well, because me and Tobias and Dan Swade, we all coached together in the summertime with Team Takeover, and it was definitely a breath of fresh air. And I was just like you as well. But the relationships that we have with high school, it wasn't always like that though. With AAU and high school, I say in the last 10 years, it's getting better every year to year with those kids, because you're getting more quality guys coaching AAU now. Back then you didn't have the quality of, they're gonna say the quality of coaches, but there were quality coaches there too. But more coaches were more relationships were together now than they were back then.
Yeah, to
I
build
don't.
on
I don't.
you got it.
Nah, you can go ahead and build on that. I was just gonna say, I don't coach AAU. I haven't coached AAU in a long time, and I actually was gonna do it this year, just because. And the only reason I was gonna do it this year was for selfish reasons. I actually wanted to go to the EYBL and see what the EYBL was all about. Everybody keeps telling me you got to go to an EYBL. You got to go to an EYBL. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I said, I'm just going to be at that level and see what it's like to coach that high caliber kid and see these high caliber kids before they get to college and to the pros. But I always felt like AAU, it took away from my personal time, like you said, and it took away from time of my team. One reason why I never coached AAU was because I felt like I needed that time. No offense to other people's kids, but I got to be in the gym with my kids. And so by me not coaching AAU, it allowed me to go to 2 or 3 different tournaments. If there are different tournaments, if I want to go watch them practice, if I want to do this, I want to do that. So all them years I didn't do it because I didn't want to be handcuffed by other programs, and I wanted to put the focus on my program. But like I said, this year I was just gonna do it just to be selfish. But I don't like anybody that does it, because when I go to tournaments, I'll say I'm going there for one game and I end up being there for 4 or 5 hours, because you see everybody. Like Coach O said, and the brotherhood. A lot of people think it's a lot of cat fighting, but it's not as bad as what everybody make it seem.
Yeah, now I'll pick up on that, like what you were saying with like relationships. AAU is basically, it's 2 sides. So on the coach side, AAU, on the coach's side, AAU is basically like the golf course of basketball in this area, particularly. Like a lot of relationship building. So if you're a coach trying to come up and you're trying to like learn about kids and you're trying to navigate your way through the DMV, AAU is a great way to have visibility as a coach, build relationships, and get to figure out different things that's going on, because during the high school season you really can't do that. You're like so focused on your program. AAU, you're going to different tournaments, you're interacting with different coaches, different settings and things like that. And for a player aspect, like Coach Will said, he wants to get in the gym with his kid. You may have only one kid that probably can play high caliber AAU. The rest of your team don't play AAU or play on a low level AAU team, or a mediocrity AAU team. So it's avenues towards that, and you may or may not want to push your kids to go play for certain programs and whatnot, but it gives the kids an extra chance to get better. And getting more games under their belt, seeing more talent, traveling, different things like that. So I definitely get where Coach Will comes from, because every program may not have, especially in a public school setting, may not have a athlete that plays on a high level of AAU, and you might have mixed emotions about that. But on the coaching aspect, you definitely can build relationships. You can grow within the area. You know, a lot of high school coaches don't communicate like we're doing now. Like, we're just starting this, but on the AAU level, it happens all the time on the road.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. So it's something to think about.
For sure.
I'll chime in on that, Coach. I coached at Bladensburg along with Coach O and Coach John, and one of how I was able to get to where I'm at now on NAI college level was based on AAU. We did take that approach at Bladensburg, kind of like the Will approach, but me and John, we created our own program specifically for the Bladensburg kids, for them to get exposure through AAU. So we wasn't with all of the top dogs, but we put them in a position where we went out and traveled, and it was kind of selfish based with Bladensburg, but we end up getting kids like Marcus from Springbrook that played for y'all this year. He played for me at AAU, and kids from Montgomery County and all over ended up playing under our program, because we just wanted to give kids that wasn't always getting the opportunity to play on the circuit to be able to compete at a high level. But through that, I met a ton of coaches, which ended up giving me several opportunities to coach on all types of levels of basketball. So, you know, to me, it's a necessary evil for the kids, because that's how you get most of your exposure.
Right.
And then also, too, it's exposure for coaches as well, because you never know who's watching. And a lot of, like Coach John said, a lot of these jobs come off shaking hands with people during those time periods. So, I mean, you know, I understand you selfish and you want your time, but I think, you know, in order to progress or to get to the highest level of basketball, AAU basketball is definitely a necessary evil to be a part of. And I think it's a good thing for the kids and coaches. It's about the person and how you use that platform. Some people use it for wrong reasons. A lot of people are doing good, and I mean, obviously you seem to be an experienced coach, so you'll be able to filter out the both. So it's different ways that you can use to benefit your kids and also yourself as well.
All right, so I hope you guys got something out of that. You know, I was the same way, so I definitely understand, because the relationship wasn't always there. And like John said, we might have had one or two kids maybe that play AAU. You know, and when John and Dez created Team Nationals, that gave an avenue for those kids. So we definitely appreciate that. Anything else you want to know?
There's so much. I think that was the biggest thing that, you know, I've debated back and forth being here. And that question has gotten brought up a couple of times. And, you know, I've turned a couple opportunities down just because it's just a lot. And like you said, you know, there are some not so great things about AAU that, you know, some people do take advantage of. And I think that's kind of like, I don't know, deterred me away a little bit. But no, I definitely appreciate all the insight for sure. And hopefully, you know, if we ever cross paths, you know, we could talk, we could chop it up. And yeah, so I just appreciate the time being here. I did want to add one thing to my Missouri list. I forgot the main person that I was thinking of this whole time.
Bradley Bill.
No, I said Bradley Bill. I said Bradley Bill. Bradley Bill got respect, but no, I'm one of the greatest coaches, Tyronn Lue from Mexico, Missouri, you know, just down the street. You know, he shouted out Missouri in the championship speech, but, you know, he's definitely somebody that I'm just like, you know, he always reps in Missouri. So I was like, let me just throw him out there for sure.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna go back just a little bit. I know y'all gonna get mad at me. And I know Tobias asked this question earlier. So in Chicago or Missouri, let's say Missouri, when you play high school basketball in Missouri, how many high school teams were in your conference compared to?
I don't even know, actually.
Was it broken up into divisions or?
Yeah, so like, well, because it was like we were like, I know we had like you had your district, and so like district was the first one. You went to quarterfinals, like semis, and then to state. So I know we were class 5A, so we were one of the largest classes. But we had such an extensive schedule. Like we're playing like 30-something games in the season, but we're playing teams like out of state. We're playing private school teams. Like we're playing teams up from all over Missouri. So honestly, like right now, I know that we had a couple of teams that we like regularly saw, like a handful, maybe like 4 or 5, but it was so scattered. We were playing such a big schedule that I don't even know. I feel so old by saying I don't know, but
I mean, I asked that question because and we always talk about this all the time, and I don't know if I'm the only one on the panel, but being from another state and you come to the DMV where this is supposed to be the hotbed of basketball.
Yeah.
For you to say that you guys play a schedule that's like, wow, we travel so much, we go here. And this is public school, right?
This is public school, yeah.
So where I'm from in North Carolina, public school, you travel the same way. But it's something about Maryland, the state of Maryland, that do not allow for public school teams to get that necessary WCAC exposure inside your schedule.
Yeah.
So in PG County, we got 22 high schools. We got 11 schools in our conference that we got to play twice, and some of them we play once. Where they fill your schedule up with 18 games, you only can play 22.
Right.
So, and I think that the competition, when we always talk about public versus private, I think that that's one of the biggest pieces for a lot of people, parents of these kids that we're servicing in our teams and that go to private schools, is that the key word that they always talk about is exposure.
100%. Yeah, I definitely see that, because even when you're talking about what Capital Hoops did the summer league this year, and there was a whole online debate about times where college coaches could come see them, and the Maryland schools not being a part of that, and there is a huge public-private divide that I don't think is necessary, right? I think there, like Wade and I talked about, I think there's a lot of talent, like even throughout our county and just in the state. And so like Coach O, when we were getting ready to play Bladensburg, I had to like pull it up on a map. I was like, I don't even know where that is. Like I don't even, what part of this area is that? But I think that there is a lot of great schools in these counties that I think games should be set up. Like it's not that far. It's not even like it's a travel issue. I just don't understand why we kind of have our hands tied behind our back. It's like almost we're forcing kids to go the private route if they're at a really high level. And what does that do for the quality of basketball for public school?
Right. And I'm glad you said that. I mean, because we always try to get the perspective of coaches, but it's great to get somebody that's from another state to actually see that, be a part of it. And then you look at the grand scheme of things, you see that like it's like a total divide. And that's one of the things that we constantly talk about, is like the division from county to county. In Montgomery County, you guys had different rules than what we got to follow in PG County.
Right.
And that's just like, we're like literally, if you wherever you want to live, 5-10 minutes from each other. You know what I mean? Right. And we got different rules and policies and procedures that we have to follow inside our own state. And to us, it's kind of crazy that we have to say that. I think that we got to look at it, the big picture of it. And like we said, everybody get on the same page as coaches. I mean, like, and that's the last thing I'm going to say. I know y'all going to kill me, but this is what we got to talk about. You got spring sports coaches right now that's been coaching that probably started 3 weeks ago, and the county talk about only paying them 24% of their check. I mean, the work that we put in as coaches, it's no way somebody's supposed to give you 24% of your stipend that you've earned over the years, that you put in time all year, not just on your season, just to coach the sport that you play.
And sorry, I know you were saying they're going to kill you, but I want to chime in on that, because this is a conversation I've, brought up to Jeff Sullivan and CPS, and just, with our athletic director, is the first thing I thought was crazy was that for basketball and CPS, you don't pay. There is no assistant coach pay. It's just the head coach, and it's your JV coach, and then and I asked him that. I didn't even know who Jeff was when I first met him at the coaches meeting. I know he was director, for athletics for the county, but I was like, how can you justify, 5-6 assistant coaches for football getting paid $5-6 grand for their, stipend, and then you say, basketball coaches don't need an assistant, or they shouldn't get paid, or you should have to split your check, or whatever the case may be. there wasn't a really good answer. And then I started digging, and I was looking at the pay scale for all of the coaches in MCS, and it's interesting seeing the disparities between sports. And I had questions. I was like, I want to know what this formula was. And they're like, oh, it's based on the hours you put in. And it's just like, how can you say, football, who, plays a handful of games. I don't even think they play 10 games within a season, can justify such a large amount if they have a shorter season versus like basketball, which I feel like is one of the longest seasons. And there's a lot of time that goes into it, but it's like, oh no, it's fine. It's just, we don't really use our stipend checks anyway after taxes. So
right. That's another thing I was about to say, because after taxes, it's like you do we did an average. It's like if you did it per hour, you'll get mad at yourself. It's like 20-something cents per hour that the hours that you actually put in to your actual work that you do. Because basketball season, like we say, they make T-shirts and they make slogans. It definitely never stops. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing season for us for basketball. So I definitely appreciate your insight on that, and I hope we was able to clear some things up about the state where you're at now and you're coaching. We're glad to have you. Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
So I'm sure we'll get this information out, and we'll be out on Twitter. Can we get your Twitter handle real quick?
Yeah, let me double check. I gotta make sure it's the right one. So
you're showing your age again if you gotta check your name.
I know. It was all right. So it's at Coach T Mike Mike.
Mike.
Yep.
I got you. All right. Well, thank you so much, Coach, and coaches.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Y'all not gonna say bye? That's so messed up.
No, my fault. Appreciate it. My fault.
It was a pleasure.
It was waving.
Oh, okay. It was nice to meet you guys. Thank you.
Now the opposite deserted. Only lions in my circle, we hungry for purpose. Nothing's given, all these stripes, you can see that I earned them. Can't buck the system, take the knowledge and study and learn it. We as strong as said the weakest, 1 through 12 is equal. Tried to trap me, saw it now. I had to thread the needle. I had to thread the needle, try erase and draw it up, just trying to see my youngins eating. Yeah, I had to thread the needle, try erase and draw it up, just trying to see my youngins eating.